Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Jay Cohn. A Billings man who fatally shot his friend in 2015 will spend time behind bars despite a plea agreement that would have allowed him to avoid prison.
Before she handed down the sentence, Judge Mary Jane Knisley said post-traumatic stress from military service does not justify murder.
64-year-old Jose Cobos sentenced in Yellowstone County District Court today to 10 years at the state prison.
Q2's Asia Gore was in the courtroom. Asia.
Jay and Jeanelle, prosecutors agreed to sentence Jose Cobos to Veterans Treatment Court instead of prison, but the judge had other plans.
This man's life was ended in a flash with a .45 that you had a license to carry and the experience to handle. You were given honors in the handling of weapons. Weapons 101 says you don't mix alcohol and weapons. You don't point weapons where you don't want them to go.
Judge Mary Jane Knisley refused to sentence Jose Cobos to her own Veterans Treatment Court. She said Cobos must pay the price for taking the life of his friend Mark Kirby. Cobos shot and killed Kirby while they were drinking together in their West End neighborhood.
And then proceeded to lie so bluntly to me, accusing my husband as he lay innocently on the driveway and could not speak for himself.
That night, Cobos told the victim's wife he was under attack and shot Kirby in self-defense. But Cobos later said he couldn't remember anything from that night. Cobos testified about his military service and the horrors of war, but he refused to talk about the shooting. Friends of Cobos spoke in his defense, calling him a selfless man who served his country.
He has really devoted his life, I think, to doing good.
Prosecutors argued Kirby, too, was a veteran who devoted his life to service.
It's difficult as a criminal justice system to ever put a price on a human life. But Mark Kirby was an exceptional man, an exceptional family man, and a valued friend to so many in the community, and his loss is deeply felt.
After Cobos is released, he will be on supervision for an additional 10 years. Jay and Jeanelle?
Thanks, Asia.
And by the way, Cobos turns 65 years old tomorrow.
In other news, the time is now.
Downtown Billings is at a crossroads for change, and leaders are now designing the roadmap for the future.
Q2's Dustin Kleeman on special assignment to look back and see what's ahead.
To know where we're going, we need to revisit our past.
Really what makes Billings special is that it's based on the railroad. It's completely based on the railroad. Although our main industry might not be the railroad anymore, we're still impacted by that early development.
Frederick Billings, 1882. He saw something special. His son, on the other hand...
He said prospects in Billings look as bright as the bottom of a camp fry pan.
Needless to say, he was wrong. The Magic City grabbed its name from the explosion of population in the early 1900s, from 800 people in 1890 to over 10,000 just 20 years later. From there, a town in eastern Montana's prairies blossomed. The late 70s, early 80s meant monumental changes for Billings. The Sheridan Hotel was built, as well as the first interstate bank tower. Since then, the skyline hasn't changed much. Downtown Billings has remarkable landscape, with beauty on every corner. But it's not difficult to find blight, or those in need of a hand up.
Billings needs to step up and stand up. It's time.
Downtown Billings Alliance Executive Director Lisa Harmon and Director of Development Greg Kruger are both set to resign from their posts at the end of the year. But before they do, the Magic City will have a new framework plan, an update of one developed 2 decades ago.
It was a no-brainer. Everything in there was pretty well came into fruition.
Since the plan was implemented, Downtown Billings has invested more than $300 million on 317 projects. Now leaders say it's time for them to call their big shot.
We've done 317 base hits. We need a grand slam.
The future, as dictated by the meeting, includes dining on rooftops, public transportation revamping with trolleys or light rails, less one-way streets, more green space, better lighting, more housing options, and inclusion of Native Americans.
And I believe that downtown is going to lead out some of those broader issues and concerns that we have as a community that need to be addressed boldly by us standing up and saying, this is what I would like to see in my community.
Financially, there are few options. Much of downtown's transformation can be attributed to tax increment finance dollars, funds that are built up by the district's businesses, reinvested into downtown.
I think it's an incredible tool because I'm going to tell you, if we didn't have it, I don't think we would have invested in 300 projects in downtown.
We have so many things that we want to happen, and it all comes down to money. You need people or something, a vehicle to pay for it. And of course, the Chamber supported the Local Option Authority for years, and this discussion supports the need for it even further.
Now with the continued discussion of the One Big Sky Center, which may not look anywhere like its first designs, leaders say this is a pivotal moment in Billings history, and it better choose wisely.
I don't think it's about one tall building. I don't think that that's a strategy for us as a city. You know, what do we want to be? What's our vision? I think that we need a mixed-use project. We need a game changer, I believe, in Billings.
And if we don't get on the bus that leads us into the next generation, the millennials are not going to come to Billings. And the ones that are here are not going to stay. Whatever happens has to be embraced by the community as a whole.
Whatever happens next won't be considered magic. Rather, the hard work found in a community that's thrived for 135 years. In Billings, I'm Dustin Kleeman, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Dustin. Good piece, huh? And one change underway in downtown Billings right now, well, the closure of the Good Earth Market today.
But that also paves the way for another business to grow in its place.
Last night's fire in South Billings that destroyed 3 barns and killed 2 horses was caused by faulty overhead electric lines. Those are the findings from the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office. This morning, that fire was still burning as Billings Fire and DNRC crews worked to put out the burning embers. Fire broke out around 7:30 last night. Fanned by gusty winds, the flames scorched nearly 3 acres of brush and trees. That fire also caused an estimated $8,000 in damage. The property was not insured.
Multiple horses on a Gallatin County ranch are now in quarantine, and they will never get out. This after they tested positive for equine infectious anemia. EIA, also known as swamp fever, is a potentially fatal viral disease of horses spread by biting insects. No vaccine or treatment is available for the disease, which is characterized by fever, depression, progressive weakness, and weight loss. Infected horses can be placed under a lifetime quarantine, can be put down, or can be donated for research.
Today, President Trump declared a public health emergency to fight the nation's opioid epidemic.
But some say that won't provide enough money to stifle a crisis that's killing more than 170 Americans a day. The declaration will streamline access to addiction treatment. Financing comes from the Public Health Emergency Fund, which has a balance of only about $56,000.
The federal government estimates fighting the opioid crisis costs the country as much as $75 billion each year.
Now, the president said one opioid that he describes as truly evil would be pulled from the market immediately.
But later, the White House identified that as the painkiller Opana ER, which already was pulled from the market in July.
The National Archives today made public thousands of secret files on the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy, but stopped short of releasing its entire stash of sealed or censored documents.
Experts say the documents could reveal more of what the FBI and the CIA knew about shooter Lee Harvey Oswald and when. Seth Lemon reports now from Washington.
Almost 54 years after President Kennedy's assassination, nearly 3,000 previously secret documents surrounding the investigation into his murder are being made public.
These are government reports written for other government officials.
Phil Shannon wrote a New York Times bestseller about the Kennedy assassination and does not expect any bombshells, but he hopes the material will shed light on a trip the shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, took to Mexico City weeks before the assassination.
Question in the back of my mind has always been, didn't the CIA know much more about what was going on with Oswald in Mexico City? Didn't they suspect that he was a much bigger threat? And why didn't they warn Washington of that at the time?
The National Archives here in Washington is responsible for releasing the information, but experts say it could take days, if not weeks, to make sense of it all. Oswald was shot and killed by Jack Ruby while in police custody, giving rise to conspiracy theories about the Kennedy assassination. In 1964, the Warren Commission reported that Oswald acted as a lone wolf, but that finding did little to put the matter to rest. Some say releasing these files is a step in the right direction.
Here's a useful moment where the government can try to show real transparency about a turning point in American history. Finally, can try to make amends for all the lies and the duplicity and the cover-ups of the 1960s.
But it's possible the documents could raise more questions than they answer. Seth Lemon, CBS News, Washington.
We heard in that piece from best-selling author Phil Shannon, who has written extensively about the JFK assassination and believes that these files could shine new light on the government's investigation into the killing that stunned America and shocked the world. Shannon calls the murder of John F. Kennedy the end of the innocence of America. He says it's a turning point in the relationship between U.S. citizens and the government.
Well, I don't think people should be looking for some bombshell. There won't be a document pointing to a second gunman in Dealey Plaza. But I think there's going to be a lot of important and maybe really surprising information about how much more the government really knew about Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination. I've certainly been struck by how people were stunned and appalled by the Kennedy assassination, and how in the years that followed, this was really the event that caused them to lose confidence that their government would ever tell them the truth. And you know, in the years that followed, the Vietnam War, Watergate, the cynicism has just grown, and I think you can link a lot of that back to the Kennedy assassination.
And as for the thousands of documents that have yet to be released, the CIA today said it is working to redact information that would harm national security and reveal specific intelligence methods.
Turning to weather, it seems like we just got into fall, but we are already talking winter, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the forecast on the heels of last night's snowstorm.
Yeah.
We thought we'd share with you what NOAA came out with their official winter forecast. By the way, winter, when does that start? In December, so it's coming up here in a little bit. But here's what we have for you. The winter forecast is showing, as far as precipitation concerned, it's going to be wetter than normal for much of Montana, all the way down to Colorado. Here in Billings, it looks like it will be a little bit wetter than normal. Towards the south, it's going to be dry from California all the way to Virginia. Let's talk about temperature. Well, it looks like it's going to be about normal for us, or what we call equal chances of being above or below normal. But it will be cooler along the High Line and also into the Dakotas. And the high heat, well, that'll start from Texas and go all the way up to about Casper, Wyoming. Our local forecast, we'll have more on that in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Still to come in tonight's Health Watch, your life may never stop moving, but that doesn't mean your health can go on the back burner. In a moment, we check out one program making it easier in Billings.
And coming up later in sports, 3 of 5 Billings teams are into the AA soccer semis. Scott shows us which ones.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with Scott Green.